SGLI is the cheapest thing going. All right, happy slide. Any questions? Any questions? Yes, sir. You don't have to ask a question, but you can.
Sir, since I'm in the Air Force Reserve, would it be a good idea for me to start with TSP?
Oh, yeah.
If possible.
Yeah, definitely. I would put the max in the TSP that they offer you, because you're going to be getting a monthly drill check. I think you said you're going to boot camp this summer. So you go to boot camp, you're going to be getting it. And check this out, while you're at boot camp, every meal, every stitch of clothing that you have on you, it's all going to be paid for by the military. So take all that money and put it back. Take the money that you make while you're in boot camp and tech school. So put that back into, and when I say put it back, I'm not saying put it in investment. You can start building an emergency fund with it. You can but if you start putting some money back into TSPs and things like that, because what are you right now, 19 years old?
Yes.
19? Okay, so think about money that you're putting in today that's going to have 50 years to grow before you're going to need it. It's a good investment.
Sir, one of your charts showed like 10% interest rate. Is that a reasonable?
I just showed you how you make 25 in a flat economy.
What about like more low risk investments?
Lower risk investments, well, the lower the risk, the lower the reward typically. So there's ways of investing your money where there's still some risk, but you might get like in a TSP. If I go back here a second. Okay, with the TSP, the G fund and the F fund, the G fund and the F fund are real low risk, okay? And but they're not returning a whole amount, 2 or 3% a year. So just barely more than your FDIC insured savings account, okay? So you can put in what's often recommended by financial advisors. Please understand that I am not a certified financial planner and I cannot provide investment advice. So this is not to be construed as investment advice. You need to talk to a financial advisor if you really want, solid answers to this stuff. But I can tell you how it works. If you invest a little bit in all of these funds, what you do is you add stability to your overall portfolio, where part of it's going to potentially grow large. The part that's not going to grow large provides the stability to keep you from losing. It's the same way a mutual fund works. Because a mutual fund, if you're investing in 100 different companies and one of them falls, then those other 99, make that one kind of insignificant. Okay. So it's and of course in the mutual fund, you want to sell off. So that's why getting into the mutual fund is the easiest way, because you can look at the past performance on a mutual fund and almost know what your return of interest is going to be. And oh, by the way, there's some millionaires out there that are doing wealth management that they're getting 20-25% a year because they've got $1 million and they've got the right financial advisor and they don't mind spending the money for it. So they can say, hey, I got $1 million, I got $2 million here. Let me play with it in the market. They give it to a wealth manager, and the wealth manager makes them a lot of money. So is 10% reasonable? Absolutely. We can't put it on the slide if it's not reasonable. What I would ask is not reasonable is 25 or 30% not reasonable? That'd be an unreasonable projection. But there are people out there that make it because they've got the money to take the risk. They're not worried about whether they make anything off of it or not. They want to, but if they don't make anything off of it, they're set. These are our GOs. This is some of you guys in here, if you retire as a GO one of these days, you're going to have that kind of money that you can take those kinds of risks with, because you're going to have that routine retirement check.
Well, TSP actually has some options you can select that already combine these funds based on when your projected retirement is. So if you're just now getting in, it'll have more in the L fund and I fund in those, and then just a little bit in the G fund. And then as you get closer to retirement, it changes those balances a little bit. But
sometimes what they do is they say, remember the very first slide that I had where I said, when do you want to retire and what do you want in retirement, the when is important there because, like me, I want money in 2020 because I want to be fishing. I love you guys and I want to be here and I'll continue coming here forever, but I would love to be fishing right now too. You know what I'm saying? So whenever I retire from this job, I'm fishing. I don't want to worry about my money. My 2020 fund is what I'm looking at. But my wife is 5 years younger than me, and women outlive men. So some of our investments are in the 2030 fund that's going to be designed for when she, if something happens to me, it's a little bit more risk, later in her life. Okay, for you guys, it's like 2050, 2060, 2070 funds because you're calculating the year that you're actually going to be getting, tapping into your investments. You don't want to tap into your investments any earlier than you. The longer you can let that stuff ride later in life, make sure that it's available for you so you can be living like a king or a queen whenever you're in your 70s and 80s. Make sense? Okay. Yes, sir.
You talked about how finding adequate financial advisor and a little bit about the pros and cons of using stockbrokers.
Okay. Yeah. I can't really talk about where to find a financial planner because, the first slide, I don't promote or endorse any particular
But
product
different banks provide financial advisors.
but there's a lot of companies out there. You can think like the Hartford and the Rock, the Prudential, ING, Edward Jones. There's a lot of companies out there that have financial advisors. Now keep in mind that most financial advisors charge a commission. So you want to know going in, what's this going to cost me? Okay? They're going to charge you a commission. They're going to charge you fees and stuff like that. I used to work for State Farm at one time. I had some stuff at State Farm, and I looked at the annual fee that I pay my guy. And it's not that much, but it costs you some money to have, that kind of advice. Stockbrokers, brokerage accounts and stuff like that, I would certainly recommend that you get professional advice. Where you get that advice, but professional advisors, one of the downsides of that is just the commissions that a lot of the stock. The other thing is that if I'm a stockbroker for Merrill Lynch may tell me, hey, look, if you can push this stock right here today, we're going to give you a little extra commission on that. And so guess what I'm pushing today? I'm calling Paul. Hey, I got some real good stuff here for you. You need some of this. And you're like, okay, sign me up because we've got a good relationship. All right. So I sign you up. Well, I'm getting paid a little extra, commission from my company because I sold what they wanted, not what you needed. All right. So you got to be careful with the stockbroker. What's their motive? Are they there to help you, or are they there to help themselves? Now, keep in mind, every time you make a transaction, whether you win or lose, what happens for them? They get paid. They get paid whether you win or lose. Okay, so you want to find somebody who's got a little bit of skin in the game, somebody who's willing to help maybe take some of the risk from you, and certainly to advise you appropriately.
How do you sift through, whether or not they have your interests at heart? Like how you
A lot of research. Google makes it easy for you now. Google will help you out. There's prospectuses out there. That's why mutual funds are so popular, because mutual funds save us from having to go and try to build a relationship with an individual person or a company when it comes to stock brokerage. Okay, so the mutual fund makes it a lot easier because we can see what the past performance of the fund is. With stock brokerage stuff, you're just looking at the trends on that actual stock on the market, and one stock can be so volatile. One bad thing happens to that company, and that stock will drop like a rock. And not to mention the fact, I don't know if you see on 60 Minutes, anybody see on 60 Minutes the other day, they were talking about these people that sit in between you and the market, and whenever you place an order, let's just say you place an order for 1,000 something widgets at $1 a share. And so they see your trade before your trade arrives at the trade floor. And what do? They go out and they buy 1,000 widgets, and then they sell them to you at a profit. So you pay more money for your stock than they did, because they knew before you completed your transaction. This happens like in milliseconds. I mean, but these companies have software that sits in between. They saw it on. I can't even believe it. It's illegal, or I mean, you wouldn't think something like that would happen, but stuff like that happens because there's a lot of people on Wall Street that are making a lot of money on the stock market every single day. So don't be misconstrued into thinking that it's that easy, that you're just going to make a whole lot of money at it, because they make a lot of money at it every day, but they work at it real hard, and they've got some ideas on the backside, and you can wind up being the reason why they're making money as opposed to you making money. Well, just be careful. Make sure you get some advice.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Any other questions? I think that pretty much covered it. Remember that most financial problems stem from a lack of planning, not a lack of money. Okay, you guys are going to make enough money in your Air Force careers where you achieve financial success and financial security. Just plan for you. Cool. All right, well, I appreciate you guys listening to me on that. Did you want me to take some questions on listed officer issues?
If you'd like to, sir, you don't have to, but
No, I don't mind. You want to facilitate this then? Yeah? Okay, so I told you earlier, I'm a retired chief. For the folks that aren't here, I'm a retired chief. I was an airman in the Air Force class, and senior airman, all the grades, all the way to. So, and I'm actually getting my master's degree right now, and I'm working on a strategic leadership class that has had me thinking about this a lot lately. And you guys are evolving leaders. Okay, you guys are learning leadership right now. You're going to get thrust into the force, and you're already going to be an evolving leader. You're not going to have an opportunity to just come in and say, okay, you're an airman and you need to learn how to pick up sticks and pull weeds out of the yard and learn how to do your job. So I spent a lot of time just learning how to do a job effectively. And at each level, each time I got a promotion, more responsibility, and then being responsible for other people is good. So through my years as an enlisted guy, basically what I learned was, in order to be a chief, because I never thought I'd be chief, I didn't think I'd make senior. I thought realistically I might make master sergeant, okay? But I didn't ever focus on chief. When I was an airman, I worked my tail off to be an A1C, and then I worked my tail off to be a senior airman and a staff sergeant and so on. Make sense? Okay, so the lesson there for a lieutenant would be, you get commissioned, be the best second lieutenant that ever walked off of Maxwell, okay? Or off of the University of Oklahoma State University campus, or, do everything that you can outside of your primary job. I mean, you got to do your primary job well, but when it comes to getting involved around base, we're recognizing your people, going to awards and recognition ceremonies. It used to really make me, I am sorry that I wasn't able to be here for you guys' award ceremony the other day. I apologize, because I love to be at award ceremonies. But, I was engaged somewhere else, but it always frustrates me to see that not everybody, especially my fellow chiefs and fellow senior master sergeants or something like that, would not support an Airman of the Year or NCO of the Year or First Sergeant of the Year award ceremony. And so sometimes everybody just says, okay, well, what's in it for me? Maybe I'm receiving an award, so I'm going to be there, but if it's not me, I'm not really that concerned about it. So things like that are important. Awards are important. Promotions, ceremonies are important. So you do all of that stuff on top of your job and try not to ever get too busy to do that. Yes, sir.
Thinking back on a young officer that you've worked with that really impressed you, what was a specific thing that they did that was different from people that did not impress you?
Specifically, Let me do a couple of officers that that I had a good relationship with. When I was first sergeant for a CE squadron, and I had a captain that he and I related very well. Well, I had a great commander, okay, and I worked for the commander, so I didn't work for this captain, but this captain was in engineering and whatnot, and he was very influential in the daily operations of the organization and made a lot of decisions. And he was one of these, stretched ahead, deep thinkers. But he and I had a relationship as peers, even though, according to the law, he outranks me. He doesn't see where he outranks me. We work together for one common goal, if that makes sense. And really, if you put it in simplest terms, we're all on the same team. We're all working for one goal. As a senior NCO, I have a hard time relating to an airman who comes in. So as a first sergeant, I was always dealing with, I had a couple of kids. I had a guy that was riding a wheelie down on his motorcycle down a highway, an interstate highway, going about 70 miles an hour. He's riding a wheelie, and the cop that was following said that he rode that wheelie for over a mile that he was in a wheelie, and he was going about 75, 80 miles an hour. So whenever I had to go pick him up out of jail and whatnot, it was frustrating. But I had a hard time talking to him because I felt like I was talking to my son. It was really difficult. So when I got back to the squadron area, of course we knew that he was be going through some stuff. I went to the lieutenant that was responsible for his flight, and I said, "Man, I need your help because you're relatively close in age to this guy. He sees you as a leader. He sees you as a mentor. He sees you almost like a peer in terms of age. So as junior officers, you can relate to the junior force a lot better than some of the senior NCOs. You will endear yourself, if you have a good relationship with those subordinates, at that level, you will endear yourself to the senior master sergeant, the chief, the first sergeant, some of the senior enlisted people that are going to have a hard time relating to the young people. Make sense? So then you make captain, you make major. Again, we work together where you're responsible for more programs as a captain and a major. So maybe you have to exercise a certain amount of leadership and management. But again, identifying the enlisted structure that really is more of a peer relationship. Because even though I worked for my commander, my lieutenant colonel, and then ultimately I had a colonel was my organization commander. Even though I worked directly for them, I was their advisor and whatnot, and I showed them all of that due respect. The reality was he treated me as an advisor, as a trusted advisor, as a peer. He didn't treat me like a subordinate and say, "Oh, I need you to go pick that up." When he had an appointment with me, he made that appointment with me. When he needed my advice, he made sure he cleared the time on the calendar for my advice. All right. So, at all levels, really. Now, it wasn't like the commanders don't like that with an airman or a staff sergeant, but with the senior NCOs, his chief, and maybe his various flight superintendents and his first sergeant, he was like that. Okay. I had at the first sergeant academy, I had a female commandant, and commandant command. Okay, so she was, even though she was a chief, she was like an officer, and she, in our organization, because our organization was structured differently at Maxwell than you see my point. So her relationship with everybody was, just very, how do I say, just very social. Okay, so I could talk to everybody, and so I always valued that in her relationship. The next commandant that we had in the First Sergeant Academy after her was a guy that came in from PACAF, and he was a sleep when you're dead kind of guy, and I respected that in him too, because with her, she was very social, but you know, you could always have good conversations with her, but I don't know that you always knew exactly where you stood with her. With him, you always knew where you stood, and usually you were on shallow ground. It was pretty, you know, like he wanted to hold us to higher fitness standards and put us together, running, doing fitness as teams and stuff like this. So while he was intense, that was also appreciated. So you kind of balance yourself to the leadership that you have and the followership you have. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Does that answer your question? I had a lot of good relationships. Just build on those relationships with the chief and the first sergeant. Really, you can. If you can impress them, you'll impress everybody else. I'll tell you what, 30 years in the Air Force is a great way of life. I will tell you that I wouldn't trade being in the Air Force one moment for you guys that are getting ready to go to camp this year, make a commitment to the Air Force. It's a great way of life. It really is. And some of you will wind up being 06, 07, 08. You know, some of you will get in and find out that it's a good 20-year career, and you learn a skill that makes you a millionaire in the civilian sector. So either way, it's a great way of life. The Air Force does a good job of taking care of you. I'm proud to be an airman. I do a lot of work with the Army, and there's an awful lot more pride and esprit de corps in the Air Force. I don't mean this to sound bad, I'm not bashing the Army, but the Army is made up of a whole bunch of people that follow orders, and in the Air Force we're encouraged to think and be problem solvers and work together to solve problems. And that's one of the cool things I like about the Air Force is that you have an opportunity to actually solve some problems.
All right, well, let's give them a round of applause.
Oh, see you guys at the meeting in August.
Sir?
What's that?
Just real quick, we have our Jet 670 ROTC glass that we'd like to give you.
Beer mug.
All right. Just as a thank you for coming out and sharing. It's been some fun with us and everything, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
Be glad to come back anytime. My insurance company prohibits me from putting any beer in this till I get home.